Welcome back to Healthy DS Kids Immune Strong. I am Dr. Candace Mathers, and we are in Module 1. In this module, we are going to talk about the immune system and everything you need to know as a Down syndrome parent. Okay, so now we have an idea of how the immune system works and the components of the immune system. So let's talk about what's going on with individuals with Down syndrome. Why do people with Down syndrome seem to suffer from immune dysfunction? Well, these are some of the reasons. A mild to moderate low T and B cell counts, impaired T cell proliferation, which means less numbers of T cells, smaller nasal passages, smaller ear canals, phagocytic anomalies, and overexpression of genes on chromosome 21. Low T and B cell counts means that there's just not enough fighters in the fight. In a typical individual, the demand for T and B cells is easily met when it comes to fighting off the pathogen. Now, this might not be the case in people with Down syndrome. So this means that there are plenty of bad guys, but not enough good guys to go around. This means that it also takes longer for an individual with Down syndrome to fight off an infection than a typical person would fight off the same infection easily. Now, let's talk about smaller nasal passages and ear canals. Let's just get into a little bit of anatomy. People with Down syndrome tend to have smaller nasal passages and then smaller ear canals than typical people. This makes it easier for pathogens to get in and harder for them to be kicked back out. If you ever had trouble with getting your child to blow her nose, then you understand. Or maybe there's lots of mucus production, but there's no real way for it to all get out, especially with people with Down syndrome who are younger, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then there's also softened airways or laryngomalacia or tracheomalacia that contribute to airway obstructions and a lowered immune response. And let's talk about impaired phagocytosis and chemotaxis. So phagocytosis is the process that occurs when a cell eats a foreign invader. Once the foreign invader is engulfed, it gets broken down with hydrolytic enzymes. This doesn't happen very well for people with Down syndrome. Chemotaxis is a process by which a white blood cell migrates to the place of infection. But people with Down syndrome seem to have impaired migration of white blood cells so that the white blood cells never reach the pathogen, or they do so in a slower manner than a typical person. This allows the pathogen to just increase and replicate and cause infection a lot easier. Now, this conversation wouldn't be complete without mentioning that certain genes also affect the immune system in people with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome have 3 copies of chromosome 21. Chromosomes contain genes, which are instructions to make certain proteins in the body. RCAN1 is one of those genes that are triplicated in Down syndrome. This means that people with Down syndrome have 3 copies of RCAN1 rather than the typical 2. It's regulator of calcineurin 1. Now, this gene, RCAN1, regulator of calcineurin, has instructions to make a protein that interacts with calcineurin. Calcineurin is also a protein that plays a role in neurological and immune system development, especially when it comes to T cells. Having 3 RCAN1 genes has been shown to lead to defective T cells that don't produce cytokines. And if you remember, cytokines are the small proteins that are important for immune cell responses to foreign invaders. Then there's also microRNAs. MicroRNAs are small RNAs that don't get transcribed or translated into proteins, but they do help to regulate gene expression, the way your genes are read and the way your genes react in the body. Now, please note that microRNA is different from messenger RNA in that messenger RNA uses information found in genes to create a sort of a template or blueprint for protein production. MicroRNA doesn't. Certain microRNAs, like microRNA 125 and 155, in the B cells of people with Down syndrome has been shown to lead to immune deficiency just because there's too much of those microRNAs compared to a typical individual. Now, While this list is certainly not exhaustive, it should start to give you a good picture as to why your child with Down syndrome seems to get sicker so much easier and so much quicker than a typical child. Then there's also a whole host of other issues that come with having an extra chromosome. This include high amounts of oxidative stress or free radical damage that's basically inherent to Down syndrome, inflammation that can come from having obesity around the trunk, like abdominal obesity, micronutrient deficiencies in crucial vitamins and minerals, especially due to having an extra chromosome, and comorbidities with other diseases or illnesses like Lyme and autism, among many other issues. It's very individualized. Now, while all of this sounds pretty heavy, I don't want you to worry. The purpose of this course isn't to worry you or to get you down about your child's health, it's to empower you. That's exactly what we are going to do in the next section when we look at how to boost your child with Down syndrome's immune system with a whole person-centered naturopathic medicine approach. I can't wait to see you there.